Good afternoon and welcome to Talking Cafe Live. I am Lucy Tobias, one of the community agents from the Community Council for Somerset, and I'm going to give it a moment, but I am joined today by the lovely Sonia from Somerset Climate Action Network. Sonia, if it's okay with you, we'll just give it a couple of moments just so that people can see that we are live.
That's fine. Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. It's lovely to see you. It's amazing when you talk to somebody on the telephone and then you see them. It's like a whole nother world.
Yes.
Okay. I'll do like 20 seconds and then
right.
and then we'll do like proper intros and you can tell us all.
Brilliant. Whereabouts are you based right now?
I'm in South Somerset, so I'm just on the edge of South Somerset.
Okay.
How about you?
I'm also in South Somerset.
Oh, are you? And so is Dave.
Yeah.
Whereabouts are you?
So I'm right in between Bruton, Castle Carey, and Wincanton.
Oh, cool. Yeah, there's some colleagues over. I'm more the Taunton side. I'm just on the edge. So we have a viewer, our first viewer, and this one sounds very exciting. So I'm sure there'll be lots more. Welcome to all those that are joining. You are here with us live on this Thursday afternoon, sunny Thursday afternoon in Somerset. And I am Lucy, one of the community agents here from the Community Council for Somerset. And I am joined today by Sonia Kondu from Somerset Climate Action Network.
Hi.
Hi, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us anything about yourself to begin with, Sonia?
So I'm Sonia Kundu. I've just recently been appointed as the first network coordinator for Somerset Climate Action Network. It's a relatively new organisation and it's growing. Yes, they felt the need to bring me on board to help them grow the network and to increase their reach around Somerset. Obviously, climate change is a very big issue that's facing all of us, and we need to increase our action on the ground. So that's what we're all about. And I've joined the project coming from, I'm still working on the Somerset Rail to Trail project, which is a project aiming to transform the disused Somerset and Dorset Railway into an active travel corridor, linking up communities across Somerset. So that really feeds into the decarbonised transport strategy for Somerset Climate Action Network.
That sounds amazing. And if you would be up for it, we'd love to invite you on to talk about the Rail to Trail project, because that sounds something else that people in Somerset would be interested in. So
sure, I think there'll be lots of projects that are connected with the Somerset Climate Action Network, actually, that your listeners will be really fascinated to hear about. It's quite exciting to really know and understand how much really positive climate action there is going on around Somerset. And there's a wealth of experience and people who have incredible knowledge and utilising that and putting it into action. It's great.
Sounds amazing. So I think it's a great place to start is to tell us, what is Somerset Climate Action Network?
Good plan. So Somerset Climate Action Network it's a relatively new organisation, and it's basically bringing together the climate expertise that I just mentioned and groups and individuals from across the county. Essentially, Somerset Climate Action Network, or Somerset CAN, as we like to call it, Somerset CAN aims to work in the spirit of partnership with local authorities and communities, local groups, businesses and other key stakeholders in order to increase the impact of our actions to drive down carbon emissions across Somerset. And in that way, we aspire to create an exemplary county, showing how low carbon lifestyle and economy can work. Not only can we show how it can work, we can show how it can thrive. If you look on our website, which is www.somersetcan.org.uk. I think you've got a nice banner there across the bottom of the screen. Great. And if you click on the network tab, you'll see a number of organisations and community groups around the county who are involved in climate action projects on the ground. Everything from bringing climate change awareness to their community, to putting into place projects which will directly have an impact on bringing down our climate emissions, such as renewable energy schemes or decarbonised transport projects like the Somerset Rail to Trail project, or tree planting initiatives. I should point out, I've been in charge of populating some new organisations on there, and I haven't quite got my head around the technical bit of adding the pin drops on the map yet. The list is up and running, and that's all good to go. But I've just got to work out the technical bits of the map.
That's all good. That's all good. So
coming soon.
So there'll be lots of people that perhaps are joining us on replay that might be a little bit blinded by the science of what you've kind of just said. And so essentially, climate action is about improving the environment and making it more sustainable and keeping it going longer for all of us, and so that the world is a better place, really, isn't it? You know, in layman's terms.
Yes, basically, we need to look at the actions that, you know, there's lots of talk now about new normal, and it's mostly in relation to the pandemic. But actually, we've been needing a new normal for a really long time. The actions that we've been engaging in, all of us collectively, we can't point fingers. We're all equally responsible, and we all equally need to change the ways in which we go about our daily business. And if we do that collectively, and, you know, I think some people find it quite daunting, a task, and find the whole issue of climate change quite depressing. But if we all stand together and we act now, it doesn't need to be that way, but we do need to take responsibility for our actions, and make even just the smallest changes can make a huge impact.
And that's really it, isn't it? Every single thing that people do that creates an impact can have it's like a ripple effect, isn't it? When you drop a stone into the water, and no one can know what the effect of somebody making a decision to change the energy that they use in their house or their car, or how they travel, or where they buy things from, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. And if lots of people do that, it can make a huge impact.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, here in Somerset, you know, we've set some climate action targets, and our county and district councils quite rightly declared a climate emergency at the end of 2019. And we've set targets to be carbon neutral by 2030, and that's only 9 years away. And the reason we need to do that is, you know, the science is telling us that if we don't make those changes by that time, what will happen is you end up with this cascade effect. We're already starting to see it. I'm sure lots of residents have seen the changes in the weather patterns, the extra flooding, you know, all these things that are going on. And if we don't act now, that cascade effect. So when I say cascade, it's like a waterfall, a snowball getting bigger and bigger, and we want to change the snowball. We want to make a good snowball of positive climate action, and that's the ripple effect that we want to start, and hopefully have started, and lots of other people around Somerset have also started. But the point is, if we bring all of those actions together and we can learn from each other and help each other with best practice and inspire one another to do more and more on the ground, then we create the good snowball of positive climate action and stop the bad snowball of the cascade effect of the harmful climate effects that we're starting to see. So that's what the Climate Action Network is about, is bringing together all of those different people who are really involved in incredible projects all over Somerset, and creating a hub where people who haven't yet got that knowledge, or they want to do something, but they just don't quite know where to start. And so we can give them the information and we can point them into the right direction for what's going on in their local communities so that they can get involved in, or we can give them information for starting something bigger, and just what you can do at home.
That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. And really, I think for people watching, that will be quite a comforting thing to hear, because there are so many people that genuinely do care and want to make a difference, but they don't know where to begin. Because
I think the majority of people really do care and want to make a difference. People are generally good people, and want the best for themselves, for their families, for their communities around them. And I think more and more people are really understanding. There's a certain amount, I think, over the last 40 years or so, where we lost that connection with the world around us, and people are starting to realize that actually we are intrinsically linked with the planet, and we need to look after it if we're going to look after ourselves, and provide a future for people's children and grandchildren. And it's really important that we take that on board.
Exactly that. And I think really for me, the bottom line is, without trees, humans are dead, which sounds quite serious, but that's kind of how it is, because we can't breathe if there's no oxygen.
Absolutely. And it goes even further than that. If with the things like the pesticide usage, the more that we use pesticides, the more that we kill our pollinators, like bees and the butterflies. And when you don't have pollinators anymore, it means that not just the trees, but a whole plethora of species of plant life will die off, because they rely on those insects to transfer the pollen, to be able to reproduce, and so we can continue to have plant life on this planet. So we need to be protecting our insects. We need to be protecting the plants themselves. We need to be looking after our water table, managing the harmful chemicals that run off into our fields and into our rivers, soak away into the water table. That's really important, because that's also having a huge negative impact on the health of the land itself and its ability to support all kinds of life systems, including like mycelial networks, which themselves are hugely responsible for sequestering carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So we talk about carbon emissions and being carbon neutral, and it's really important to understand that to get carbon neutral, we need to not just offset our emissions by creating things which store and remove from the atmosphere the carbon that we're putting out there, but we also need to reduce the amount of carbon that we're putting out there in the first place. We can't just do it by planting trees. It's just not possible. Or improving the mycelial network, or making incredible salt marsh projects, which we've got here in Somerset. We're very lucky to have that. And all of those things are amazing and they're all very necessary. But unless we individually reduce our carbon production, our carbon emissions into the atmosphere, we just don't stand a chance. So we all need to get on board with it. And like I said, really simple changes that you can do at home. Everything from, switching off your light bulbs and everything on standby, changing the kinds of light bulbs that you've got. If you've got the money, making sure your home is insulated better, switching to renewable energy, buying less stuff. Got to buy less stuff everything that's produced and delivered to your door. All of that whole production process, it creates a carbon footprint. And we have to reduce our carbon footprint.
100%. And I personally am quite on board with that. And I think for a lot of people, they probably don't really think about that, because we live in a society where it's very easy to walk or drive to a shop and to buy something. And there's a disconnect between what we're buying, where it's come from, and the impact. And so this is a bit of a random example, but it's just come to my head and it's a personal one. So when I was a small child, I became a vegetarian because I went to a farm on holiday with my family and I saw somebody cutting the head off a chicken. Excuse me, viewers, but this is sometimes how things happen out there in the world. And I didn't know prior to that point that chicken that one ate from a plate and chicken the bird was the same thing. And there was a real disconnect. I was a 4-year-old child. And when I found that out, I was mortified and decided that I didn't want to eat the chicken anymore or any other meat, because how could we do that as human beings? And I think that for a lot of people, they'll go to the shop, they'll buy a bit of clothing, a piece of jewellery, some food, and they won't know where that food or that clothing has come from and the impact of that carbon to get it there. So again, in basic terms, things that you buy, things that anybody buys, me, you, anyone watching, the further away they come from and the more production that is involved in making them, the more carbon they produce, which is damaging to the environment.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important to get a handle on where everything that you buy comes from and really try to buy local. I think here in Somerset, actually, we're quite lucky in that we have a lot of amazing food producers right here in the county. And it's really important to support them. I think that whenever you buy your veg box or wherever you're getting it from and whatever meat you get, really make the effort to buy from local farmers. Don't necessarily go to the big supermarket chains, but if that's your only option to go to the big supermarket chain, really have a look at the labels and see where is this food being produced. Lots of the vegetables that we see on our supermarket shelves have been shipped in from Mexico, from Portugal, from wherever it might be around in the world. And we just don't need to be eating those things. Try to eat things that are in season. You know, we've become quite spoiled, and, you know, we can have asparagus all year round, for instance, but it's actually only in season in this country for about 6 weeks. So eat it locally when it's in season, and then move on to the next thing. And it's actually better for you in health terms. Our bodies genetically are set up to eat things seasonally, and you get certain benefits from them. And also, the further away that your food comes from, the more likely it is that it's been, in terms of fruit and veg, for instance, more likely it is that food has been picked while it's not even ripe. And so it hasn't had the chance to absorb and produce all the amazing vitamins and minerals that we need to get from that food. And it's ripened in cold stores, but not on the plant itself. And so what you're consuming, you're paying more money for. It's got a higher carbon footprint, and it's not even giving you what you actually want it for. You know, so all the more reason to buy local.
Or even one step better than that, and an agent in our agent team, in fact, there's more than one agent, put some seeds in a pot or in the ground and grow it. You know, where I live, there isn't a traditional garden, so there's a courtyard, but I do have some pots and a few bits and bobs. But there is a colleague who last year showed me her beautiful organic veg garden that a lot of people, I think, at the beginning of the pandemic last year thought, you know, how am I going to get my food? And it was at the time that was ideal time for planting. But there's planting that can be done throughout the year. And, you know, even if somebody lives in a flat, a lot of people in Somerset don't live in flats. But there are, even if somebody lives in a flat and they've got a little window box, there's always something that one can grow, whether it's herbs or, you know, some veg, salad, exactly. And that, like the joy and satisfaction of growing something and creating something oneself and harvesting it, it's a bit like making something. When you make something yourself, the proud feeling, to me.
Absolutely. And we should also remember that, you know, growing vegetables can sometimes, you have to be around, and you do need to take care of them. And for some people, maybe that's not, it's just a bit too daunting. It's just an extra thing in their week that they don't want to have to deal with. But you can plant pollinators. You can plant pollinating, you know, wildflowers. And if you plant native wildflower species, you are doing something brilliant for the environment, because, the more organic flowers of native species that we have, the better that our climate can thrive.
Exactly. And even it's simple, easy things. In my little garden outside my courtyard, just behind here, there's 3 pots of lavender. They're so easy. They don't need a lot of care and attention. They need a little bit of water, and the bees love them.
Yes. You can also do some really incredible things. There's, you know, we're fighting against tree die-offs of various different species. And so, you know, one thing that I could tell you about is to help save our oak trees is in the autumn, when the acorns are on the ground, you can collect some of them up, and you can put them. Acorns need a good frost to be able to germinate. And because our climate is getting hotter, so our winters are getting milder. I know lots of people are kind of looking out the window and maybe thinking, what hotter? We could do some global warming around here.
Today it's warm here. Today it's warm where I am.
Oh, good. It's starting to get warmer here as well, actually. But yeah, some people, but when it's been a colder summer, think they don't really see the global warming, and you forget that winters are much milder. We used to have really quite thick snow and hard frosts for a good prolonged period of dormancy on the ground, and that's not happening quite as much anymore. So things like acorns, you can collect them up, put them in the freezer for a week, and then chuck them back outside.
I did not know that.
Little things to help the world.
That is amazing. I love that. Dave, can we have that one, please? It's like that old what was it called? The TV show where they said, "A pea, please, Bob." Acorns, please, Dave. One of my neighbours actually is growing a little oak. He planted an acorn, and so there's a tiny oak just behind where this computer is.
Lovely.
I love that. And I suppose really planting and things like that, are there on the website, if people were to go to the website, is there, you said that there's a list, can people look for things locally, whether they can get involved in tree planting or
yes, if you look on the network page, there's a number of tabs on our website, and if you look on the network page, there's a whole list of organizations that are part of our network, and you'll be able to see where there's something going on locally to you. Like I said, I need to update the pin drops on the actual map, but if you scroll down the list, the names of each organization are fairly explanatory, and they'll tell you where they are. They've usually got the name of the area where they're based in as part of the title of the name of the organization. And
like Taunton Climate
exactly.
Group, for
example.
Exactly.
Taunton Environmental Network, that kind of thing. Yes, exactly. So, and then you can contact them and find out what amazing things they're doing now, what they're trying to get off the ground, and lots of the projects need volunteers, but also there's ways to be involved in terms of you could start up something new yourself if you're feeling really inspired, and we can give you the tools, and there's lots of people on the network who already have that expertise to help get things off the ground if there isn't something in your local area. And then if you go onto the What Can I Do tab, that's got a whole list of things that you can just kind of check in with, that will make it easier for you to... I need to plug in my computer. Didn't realise that wasn't plugged in.
Don't disappear and suddenly there's this... like the climate crisis has really taken we've lost Sonia. Okay, that's really useful. So and the fact that there's a What Can I Do tab, is in itself inspiring, because everyone can then get involved themselves and do something that feels applicable to them, because some people might want to grow veg in their garden, some people might want to go a lot bigger and impact their town, and so forth. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about some of the questions that I was going to come to later. So I'm going to kind of, come back a little bit, because one of the things I wanted to ask about, and we have touched on this, but perhaps I wanted to bring it round a bit more to Somerset. And so the sort of graveness or the severity of the climate crisis, because it is talked about in the news or round and about in the media and here and there, but I think really for a lot of people, they don't, again, there's a disconnect of how's that going to affect me, and what's that going to actually mean in Somerset, and when?
Yeah. So, well, the climate crisis is by far the biggest challenge that we face. If we keep burning fossil fuels and consuming at our present rate, we would need the equivalent of 3 planets to support us, which is just, I mean, just to think about that is just insanity. And so we simply can't afford to burn the fossil fuels. And, we can't afford to burn the fossil fuels that we've already discovered, and much less develop new oil fields. But not only that, the temperature rises and changes in the weather patterns that we're already seeing will only get worse. And what that means for us here in Somerset, I think we've already touched on, as we said, we're going to have more periods of drought like we did last year. And given that a large chunk of our economy in Somerset is based on agriculture, this has very serious consequences indeed. For instance, pig farmers in an average year will lose about 20% of a litter. That's what I understand from speaking to local farmers here. And that's normal. But last year, farmers where I live here in South Somerset were reporting up to 50% losses from their stocks. And that's, it's extremely stressful for both the animals and for the farmers. And of course, for the farmers, that stress is not just an emotional one, but it's a financial one too. And another major consequence for us here in Somerset is flooding. And I'm sure this will have affected lots of your listeners. Rises in sea levels means more coastal flooding on the west side of Somerset is coastal, and rises in rainfall means more serious flooding on the levels and on the moors. And again, that not only affects our farming industries, but it has a huge financial impact for individual residents from property damage. And of course, then there's the increase in insurance premiums. So there's lots of that. I think those are the main reasons that people will see it affecting them personally on a day-to-day basis here in Somerset, and we need to do everything we can to combat that. And that's what Somerset Climate Action Network has been doing. And I'm sure that you're aware that Somerset County and the 5 district councils declared a climate emergency at the end of 2019. And so following that, Somerset Can arranged a public consultation in all 5 districts of Somerset. As well as that, Somerset Can produced a series of reports which were all evidence-based, which in a nutshell detail all the recommendations for actions that we here in Somerset need to be getting on with in order to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030. If anybody's interested, all of these reports, again, they can be found on our website under the tab that says Our Work. And all of these reports were produced mainly to support our local authorities in achieving their targets in the most efficient way. It's really important to understand where our greatest emissions come from and which actions will have the greatest impact in order to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030. As again, it's only 9 years away. We really don't have much time. So the recommendations that Somerset Can made, they look at everything from community education to how best to invest money to get the biggest impact. Changing legislation is also important, for instance, to ensure that any future home building is done to certain standards in terms of energy efficiency. insulation, double glazing, energy efficient heating systems. All of these need to be considered. And again, I'll remind everyone, if you've got the money, please make sure your home's well insulated, change the glazing on your windows. And, we're obviously trying to encourage governments to come up with grant solutions to help low-income families to also make those changes.
And there's some grants available, isn't there? And some
there have been, but some of them have been stopped. So we're trying to. I mean, it's a difficult time for everybody right now, I think, because of the pandemic. There's been lots of money had to be spent in other places, and it's an unfortunate symptom of the way that we've been operating for many, many years. We seem to be firefighting. It's quite hard to take proactive measures when you need to put out this big fire first. So yes, it's whenever possible, we encourage grants to be made available, but there was one, but unfortunately it was stopped. But hopefully there'll be some more soon, and we'll definitely keep you posted.
We do a little bit of work with some of the energy organisations. So the National Energy Action,
yes,
NEA, and also the Centre for Sustainable Energy. So we as agents do work with those, and so I think that they have small pots of money available to help people to make changes. And some of our clients, for example, probably not those that are going to be watching this broadcast, but we still do have clients that have, coal or solid fuel based heating sources. And in Somerset, there is still a lot of that kind of burning that takes place to heat homes. And so there is some money, I believe, for those people to kind of modernize those and bring them up to a kind of more modern standard that also takes into account the carbon that's produced.
Yes, yeah, and that's really brilliant that the village agents can put people in touch with those kinds of grants and help people to make those changes. I think the village agents do amazing work keeping in touch with local communities and really understanding on the ground who are the people that need those grants and being able to direct the grants to the right places. That's really great work that you do.
We in the winter we have a little pot of money as well for helping to keep people warm, and so there could be some more conversations that we could have outside of this meeting, this
absolutely
to see where we as an organisation that working on the ground can help people. And
absolutely, we can help whenever you're aware of little pots of money that are coming up. We can help you put the word out and let people know that that's available. I'm sure there's definitely a synergy there that we can take advantage of.
Right, great. So you mentioned a moment ago about there's certain things that have a much bigger impact that people can do. So I think it would be really useful for us to quickly touch on what are the biggest things that people can do. We did talk about it earlier in the broadcast, I think, but not necessarily in the kind of like, if you do this is going to have a much bigger effect than if you change your cotton buds.
Well, one of the things that, in the reports that Somerset Can did, they recognised that transport is probably the biggest carbon emission generator in Somerset. And so we all need to look at the way we move around Somerset. And it's a particular sticking point in rural Somerset. Lots of people wouldn't opt for public transport because it is quite poor, the provision in Somerset, unfortunately. and it's being reduced year on year. And so for many people, using a car is the only option. And using an electric car, it's too expensive to buy. So while this theme, it's a top priority for residents and for councils, but actually being able to do something about it can be quite challenging for councils. So the lowest cost impact, but the lowest cost thing which we can do, but which will have the highest impact, is to switch to walking and cycling. And we need to really encourage and lobby our local authorities and our MPs to get behind walking, cycling and riding the active travel routes, basically, that link us up to our local amenities. I think lots of residents would like to cycle or to walk to their shops, but don't necessarily feel safe because we have lots of narrow country lanes with high speed traffic, very little visibility. And so ideally what we want is off-road routes that connect to go into our nearest towns where we have the amenities of schools and shops and doctor surgeries and things like that. And wherever possible, switch to walking and cycling if you can. Get out more and more. And if you must use a car, try to lift share. Just doing that can make a huge difference. And yeah, I mean, like I said, encouraging your local parishes and larger local district authorities to make better provision for joining up active travel routes for walking, cycling, horse riding, making better engineered junctions and general town planning that puts walkers, mobility aid users, cyclists and horse riders first. That would clearly address resident needs. And then, yeah, I mean, this, we touched on supporting your local economy. That's really important. Buying from independent retailers, always opt for fair trade products where you can. Check which companies are members of the Ethical Trading Initiative. And you can find out about that at www.ethicaltrade.org, which I think Dave is very kindly putting up on the screen for us. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
I think we said eat more vegetables, and when you eat meat, make sure you buy from local Somerset-based farmers, especially ones who engage in organic farming practices. The more that you buy from those farmers who engage in organic practices, the more you encourage other farmers to start adopting those organic farming practices. And in fact, buy all your food from local producers. Just don't buy anything from outside. And reduce your food waste by planning meals ahead, buying only what you need. Try not to throw stuff away if you can help it. There's another really great website which has brilliant.
Dave's already put it in the thing.
He's in there. Love food, hate waste. Yay, go Dave.
Dave is on it.
He's on it. What else can you do from home? So another thing you can do from home is you can choose banks which invest sustainably and ethically, and you can divest your pension. So switching your bank, and people you don't realize, but obviously banks are huge corporations, and whatever they invest in has an impact on the global carbon footprint. And if we put our hands up and say, don't like what you're doing, we don't like the things that you're investing in, actually, we're going to move our money to this bank who invests in green and ethical projects. Again, it encourages those bigger corporations to make the right changes. And there's a really good place to get information on that, and that's the goodshoppingguide.com, which, yeah, they've got lots of information on changing to an ethical bank. There's a whole tab on there about that. What else can I tell you about? I think we talked about getting involved with your local community, checking on our website again for places where you can volunteer, and joining a local group. We mentioned traveling less, especially try to reduce or stop flying altogether. Flying has a huge carbon impact on the world. Try to keep your holidays local if you can. Not that we've had a lot of choice in that in the last year or so. So that's not been a bad thing. And yeah, lobby your MPs and councillors to support local environmental projects, to implement, as I said, more safe active travel routes, for instance, which will help us all to feel safer to walk and cycle. And plant your pollinator plants in your little garden, even the tiniest little space.
Garden, yeah,
or a big garden. Mow your lawns less. Mow the lawns less. Mow paths through the lawns rather than let the lawns grow up and with their wildflowers and wild grasses. That's all really, really helpful. Again, avoid pesticides and fertilizers. Again, lots of brilliant information on the Pesticide Action Network UK, which I think is www.pan-uk.org. And that has lots of information about the issues and ideas for alternatives. You could install a water butt in your garden. You can harvest rainwater for watering plants, as well as being water conscious at home. Don't leave taps running even when you're brushing your teeth. And we said before, buy less stuff. Turn to charity shops for clothes. Share things like tools with your neighbours. Swap books and stuff with your friends and family. These are all better ways to reduce our consumption. And when you do need to buy stuff, buy better quality. Don't buy the cheap stuff. Buy things that are sustainable, they're high quality, and that can be repaired and reused. In the long run, you're saving money, because when you buy the cheap stuff that breaks, you just have to replace it. So it's a false economy. And steer clear of overly packaged items. We don't need so much waste in the world. What else can I tell you about?
That sounds amazing. I think we've probably kind of summed up loads there. So
okay.
You've done, and I think the real highlight ones are look to walk and cycle more. Such an easy thing to do, and the majority of us will do a big shop, but often have to get a pint of milk or a loaf of bread or something small. And if people can choose to walk or cycle to get that and get it from their local town, where I live, I'm fortunate that it's a little town, and there are lots of little towns in Somerset, but there is a baker's, a butcher's, lots of the butcher's also is a greengrocer, and so there are lots and lots of alternatives if people are willing to do something different and choose differently, wisely, better for the environment.
And where that safe walking and cycling provision isn't available in your area, start a group to look at where the routes can be put in for safe provision for everybody, and get it going. Encourage your parish council to be on board with it, because it's really, really important. One more thing that I will say is if you can, swap to a green energy supplier if there's one available. And buy energy efficient appliances. Be energy savvy. It's not just about turning off your appliances or turning off turning your lights off. Another good link is the energysavingtrust.org.uk.
So I'll pop that. I will show that in the banner. There you go.
Brilliant.
Which
yeah, there's loads of amazing information out there. Have a look at all of it, and like we said, you know, we're here. If anybody's got any questions, just get in touch. Contact us on our Facebook page or through our website.
Thank you so much. So there is a link just a lot on the bottom of the screen there for the Facebook page, and I'll pop. We'll stick the link for the Facebook page and for the main website in the comments box of this video. But thank you so much, Sonia. There's so much that we've covered. And
my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
There's amazing what little things that people can do, you know, putting some acorns in the freezer and planting them out, or even just throwing them into the forest, you know, how exciting for some little kids. Take some acorns, put them in the freezer. At another time, you know, when it's a wet day or something, go out into the forest and throw them, and one day there'll be oak trees.
Yes, exactly. Excellent. Brilliant.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Lucy.
Okay, bye everyone.